Little chocolates and everything?
100%. Whatever they want. I am definitely not a neutral body. The union represents labor and NECA represents management.
Your background is in government.
If you're not playing in one of those three fields, you're not participating in a market growth area.
The best time to be a really good limited energy team was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now.
We, as people in the industry, have an obligation to tell people about this industry.
Welcome to the Beyond the Breaker podcast.
We're started.
Here we are.
Luke, Andrew, and everyone else, welcome to season 2 of Beyond the Breaker. And for those folks who are watching, you're going to notice that we have a slightly different studio space here. And for those of you who are listening, I hope you can't tell the difference at all. We moved locations, and this is kind of snazzy for us. I'm excited about it today.
It's a good looking place. So if you are listening, I encourage you to watch. It is also on YouTube. So
yeah, there you go.
Go for it.
And today we've got a special guest.
Yes.
We have Mr. Kuhl, literally Luke Kuhl, who's going to share some of his background, why he's here today and things like that. But he's a fellow who works with NECA. You'll learn all about it. And further in the episode, we're going to talk about what does NECA do? Why does that matter? Some of the cool things that you guys do for contractors large and small. And then I think we want to talk about the future too. That could be future of technology, future of your organization, of the industry at large. We're just going to see kind of where that goes. Mm-hmm. And with that being said, Andrew, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So Luke, for those in the room, just kidding, the entire audience, if you could brief us on what is NECA, what purpose does NECA serve to electrical contractors, and who does NECA work with?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's exciting to be in your new studio. Check this out. I feel like I'm on a construction site. It's probably not someplace you want a NECA person to be, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that. So NECA, NECA, National Electrical Contractors Association. What NECA is we're an association that represents union electrical contractors across the country. We have a national organization in Washington, D.C. that does a bunch of national stuff for us, but we have about 120 different chapters across the country. And Twin Cities NECA, which is who I work for, is just one of that 120 representing union electrical contractors. So when I say representation, what does that mean? It's a little complicated, but I'll break it down pretty simply, is that if a union electrical contractor has an issue with a grievance or with negotiations, with apprenticeship or anything like that, NECA is there to help out. And that's for anyone who's a signatory contractor for the locals that we cover, which is 343 in southern Minnesota, 110 in St. Paul, 292 in Minneapolis. So that's our coverage area. If there's an issue, any signatory contractor can reach out to us. Now, we have a second group of people who are signatories, but they're also members. And those members get like concierge service was what I would say. Yeah, fancy.
Sounds fancy.
It is fancy.
Little chocolates and everything?
100%. Whatever they want. So members pay a little bit more into the system, but we do a lot more for them. We have opportunities for education. We do networking opportunities. We have government relations. It gives people an opportunity to serve not just as a leader in their business, but also a leader in the industry. So they can serve on the trust fund, a union trust fund. They can serve on the apprenticeship committee. They can serve on NECA's board of directors. So that's a way for folks to level up. So we provide a lot more services to our members. But we also have an obligation per the collective bargaining agreement to represent all signatory contractors.
And what does that look like locally as to understanding there's, the signatory contractors in the Minneapolis, St. Paul, southern Minnesota area? How does that relation coincide with the union and obviously the union members that work for these contractors?
Yeah, so the most important thing that NECA does is that we negotiate. And so when the collective bargaining agreements come up for the 292 inside, 343 inside, 110 inside a construction agreement, or the statewide limited energy agreement, we negotiate it. So NECA is kind of quarterbacking that whole process. We do it with a group of contractors, a group of our member contractors, but NECA kind of spearheads that whole effort.
And when you say that, are you acting as that neutral party between the contractors and the collective bargaining folks?
I am definitely not a neutral body.
Okay.
So the union represents labor and NECA represents management.
Okay.
So in some, sometimes when I'm talking to union folks, I'll say that NECA is the union for management.
Sure.
And it does not quite the same thing, but that's the big picture idea.
And you have to keep breaking it down simply like that for me, because I've never been involved in either side of that. So like just really shortly, you guys represent the contractors and you're going to serve their negotiating interests as it comes time to kind of work through those agreements with the collective bargaining folks and the IBEW.
Yep, that's exactly what we do.
Boom.
If there's a grievance, like the union files a grievance against an employer, we're going to represent the employer, the union is going to represent the union, and we're going to work it out. So that's kind of what we're there to do.
Yeah.
So I'm wearing a nice St. Paul chapter NECA quarter zip.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. This is a vintage. But I do want to ask, because the two chapters, Minneapolis and St. Paul, recently merged. So how has that gone? What was the reason for merging? I think it's been a conversation for a very long time. And what has that looked like in the past year? And what do you guys hope that it continues to look like going forward?
Yeah. So merger has been very exciting for us. When the St. Paul chapter was created back in 1952, it was called the Minnesota chapter. And then a couple months later, Minneapolis decided they wanted in on the action. And we had St. Paul and Minneapolis. And ever since that time, which is 1953, we've had two chapters. And then last year, we merged into one. Throughout that period, there's been multiple efforts to try and merge the chapters, and it just never happened. It never happened for a whole variety of political and other reasons. It just wasn't going to happen. So we're excited to finally get it over the edge. I think we're able to provide a much better service to folks. We have access to much more data, and allows us to see holistically what's happening in the Twin Cities marketplace and Southern Minnesota marketplace in ways that we just never could have before. And I think that lets us provide a better benefit to our member contractors, makes us more efficient when we're going in negotiations, and quite frankly, just gives us more credibility within our national organization as well as with the unions, because we are a bigger fish in the pond, so to speak now.
Yeah, right on. This is, I don't know, maybe a slightly different direction than Andrew you were going to ask next. But when you talk about the benefits of being a member and the services that you guys support different contractors with, now we're merged. If I'm a project manager, an estimator, if I'm somebody at one of those employers, what kind of things am I going to see a direct benefit for? Whether that's before the merger, after the merger. What are some of the things that I would look for or challenge my employer, like, hey, I heard that NECA does that. I want to get involved in it, or I want to sample that benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are so many different things that NECA does, but one of the elements of how we operate is that we have delegates from the member contractors. So Hunt, for example, has X number of people that they have as listed as delegates for NECA. The reality is that a lot of the educational and other types of benefits that we provide are available to other folks. Whether you within your organization with Hunt or within Luke Kuhl contracting, really depends on what the leadership wants and whether they will allow you or.
But if I'm a guy who's at Archkey or Gephardt or Egan or any of the other major players in this market, like, I can go ask and maybe get involved some more.
100%. You should ask. You should ask, because we do a lot of field leadership training type of work that isn't just for maybe the owners and top folks within the contracting business. And to be honest, like, the people that we communicate most with tend to be owners and top leadership of the contracting businesses. So we're always trying to reach down more to get more people to know who NECA is.
Yeah. And like, I imagine myself being a young new project manager, or maybe it's, I've moved from one market into this market. That sounds like there would be a ton of benefit there in some of that structured guidance about those communications with the field and how to negotiate some of those waters. Like that would be great.
How about, so you mentioned a lot of contractors, mostly larger contractors.
Yeah.
What if I'm a contractor that has 10 employees? What's the threshold for NECA? Who's welcome? Who's not? Layout question.
Yeah, of course. Everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome at NECA. We don't. The way that NECA is funded depends on how many hours are worked, but it doesn't matter. You can be the smallest contractor. You can be a mom and pop shop with just by yourself, and you could avail yourselves of NECA benefits and become a NECA member. Maybe a little bit harder for you to take a day off of work to go to a NECA meeting, which is what we see as a challenge for a lot of the smaller contractors. But we have, a lot of small contractors. We have obviously large contractors. We have medium size. All of them are out there, and there are tracks and educational opportunities that fit certain types of contractors. And so if you're a mom and pop shop that's specialized in this niche market, like we're going to be able to help you figure that out. If you're a medium-sized contractor and you're going to go to a new market, maybe you're chasing a customer to a new market.
Sure.
You can use NECA, you can use me or any of the NECA staff to reach out to wherever you're going, to the NECA office there, and figure out what's going on there. What, are you going to be able to get the labor pool that you want? Are you going to have to partner with a local contractor? Who might those people be? We can do that because of our national network.
Well, and I think too about being a shop maybe that's growing. I'm going to make some stuff up, but maybe there's 15 or 20 craft workers out in the field, and y'all have a steady stream of business here. But hey, we want to get into something a little bit different, or we see some opportunities coming down the line. You can help with some of that market assessment. You can help with some of the data, maybe.
Absolutely, we can help with all of the data, and we have great members like Hunt, who maybe I want to start a offsite manufacturing or prefab shop, and I'm just a small shop. I'm not gonna build Bear, but through our NECA network, we can say, hey, this is what's kind of going on with Hunt. Maybe you can pick up a couple of little pieces. You're not going to do it the way that Hunt's doing it or another large contractor, but you can do it in a way that makes sense for your business. And so, that's a huge benefit as well. And say you're buying a new piece of equipment, you want to be able to get a new Trimble system. Like, how big do you have to be able to make that thing pay out?
Sure.
Like, we can make those connections. We can put you in front of people that have made those decisions in the past. So you make the right decision for your business.
I really like that. And no disrespect to Trimble or any other, software or hardware provider. They're in the business of selling their product. They're going to tell you it's going to work for everybody. It's going to be great. But like if you're able to help make connections for folks so that they can get it, straight from the horse's mouth, as it were, somebody using that product and in the way that they intend to. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. And then also on a national level, we have Electri International. I think you had Josh Bone on here. Yep. And if you haven't listened to that episode, you should. It's fabulous. If you're not paying attention to what Josh Bone's saying, you're not paying attention.
Just listen to that accent.
So
warm Southern charm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Electri International does a ton of research. And it helps us as chapters to be able to determine, what's the next thing going to be. If you're a small contractor, you want to start a limited energy division, how do you do that? Like we have research. When I say we, I mean Electri, which is associated with NECA. We have access to that type of research that can help you start making the decisions to diversify your business and make it a better, more stable business in the long run. That's what we're here to do.
So I want to adjust a little bit. Your background is in government, a little bit. So tell us a little bit how NECA approaches that locally, nationally, and maybe what your role with the Twin Cities chapter looks like from that standpoint and how that affects contractors.
Could I ask for the tiniest buffer of, you said you're in government. How did you get there? What is that little bit of background?
Yeah.
Why should we listen to what you're having to say?
Good point.
So,
And then lay it on us.
I am an attorney by training. I am not an electrician. You don't want me touching. I will cut, electrocute, do whatever if I get anywhere
Bad stuff.
too close to this stuff. So I'm an attorney by training. I did practice law for a few years, and then I worked for the legislature for about 5 years, and then I worked for the previous administration for the governor for 5 years. So yeah, no, I was deeply in the bowels of government. And I mean, part of what made me interested in NECA was that I had a lot of experience trying to work across the aisle to resolve issues and to work between different people with different ideologies, people with different values, people with different just outright objectives, and trying to come to resolution. And that's a lot of what NECA does, whether that's working with contractors trying to get what they want to do or working with the union to try and get the whole thing. So I worked in government for about 10 years. And then NECA, how does NECA deal with government? It's kind of a two-pronged approach. Nationally, we have a team of lobbyists that go around at the national level, and that's funded through our national organization. So Twin Cities NECA, if we needed something from Washington, we would use our national apparatus. Locally, we have a lobbyist, and I'm very excited. We have a new lobbyist, Ann, who just came on board for this session. And so we have a lobbyist that represents us at the legislature. But to be honest, the legislature is only a small part of the overall government relations type work, because when the dust settles and the laws are passed, it's the Department of Labor or the Department, DEED, Economic Employment and Economic Development. Those departments are the ones deciding how those laws get implemented. And so, yeah, there's a fight on the front end for the law. And then what I think NECA has been really good at is the fight on the back end for how that law gets implemented and making sure that it gets implemented in a way that is beneficial or at least not detrimental to contractors. So my role in it is, since the merger, my goal is to become more active in government relations. To be honest, it's taken a little bit longer to get all of the merger stuff handled, trying to merge two organizations.
Wait, are you saying it didn't go exactly per plan like you bullet pointed it on your list?
It went exactly per plan. It might have taken a little bit longer than what anyone wanted. But the goal is to get more active and to get contractors more active. So at least a contractor knows what to do and knows who their representative is. We have lots of contractors who have issues with the legislature. I think rightfully so. The legislature has been problematic for businesses and small businesses in several ways the last few years.
Sure.
And they want NECA to solve their problems for them, and we try. And I think we do a good job. But then you go to the next level and say, well, have you talked to your representative? Have you talked to the representative of, the place where your shop is?
And when you say that, you're referring to like the state level Congress legislative body, that member.
Right.
Sure.
Exactly. Who's your local rep? Who's your local senator? Did you reach out to them? Did you say, hey, I'm a business owner in your area? Did you give money to their campaign or not? I mean, but these are all fundamental issues that we've been good at the nuts and bolts of lobbying, and we've been good at the nuts and bolts of working with the agencies and departments. But where we really need to step up is to start having a little bit more contractor engagement, even in the most simplified way possible. So it's not interfering with their business, but augmenting what they're trying to do.
And their voice gets heard, right? It's their voice, not somebody else saying it for them. Makes a big difference.
It's great for NECA to go out there in front of this podium and talk at a hearing. Mm-hmm. It's way better for, I'm Johnny. I own an electrical contracting business. I employ 30 union electricians who get great wages, great benefits. And what you're trying to do is going to hurt me in XYZ way. Yeah. And I'd really like to work with you to find a better solution. Yeah.
And I'll be really transparent. Not that I've been involved in like government things in the past, but this is one of those times where it's so clear to me that like that is the way that government can help folks, right? helping them stand up for their business, helping bridge that gap between what they experience and how do they influence what the laws are, the way that different pieces are changed about the way they're interpreted. And like maybe for the first time ever, I'm like excited, like, oh yeah, let's go do that. Let's connect with those reps and make some change.
Yeah.
Love that. Mm-hmm. And I hope that resonates too, folks that are listening to this, that very small contractors and medium and, anything that kind of fits into that non-huge category, like this is that opportunity to really make an impact in your small business, in your community, with your customers and with your employees. Like, so great.
I think being a small employer is one of the things that elected representatives those are the types of people that people most want to talk to, because those are the people that, are on the street doing the work. And, not to say that a larger company like Hunt can't be influential, but you can also be overly influential if you play your cards right as a small contractor and you're talking to the right people.
Yeah, great. As we talk about the different things that NECA does and the way, you gave us a little bit of history on 2 chapters, now 1, let's look to the future a little bit. And you can kind of interpret that whatever way you want, but really, where are we going as an industry? How does that impact the way that we're training our workforce? How do you think that's going to impact the way that contractors interface with collective bargaining employees and customers?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question for right now, because this is such a difficult time for contractors, and it seems strange that it would be a difficult time. You look around and you listen to Josh Bone on the last episode, and this is an amazing period of time where there is unlimited amount of work for electricians, assuming that union electrical contractors can procure that business, and so that is wonderful. But what does that actually mean, right? When you look under the hood, what does that mean? What is driving the economy these days? It's data centers, it's healthcare, to a lesser degree, it's clean energy, solar, that type of work. Mm-hmm. If you're not playing in one of those 3 fields, you're not participating in a market growth area. And so for a larger contracting firm, that's easier. It's going to be easier to diversify your portfolio of what it is. For a smaller contractor, that's a lot harder, because you might be a niche contractor, and that might work for you. And it has worked for many contractors for many, many years. The question is, what does the future hold? So I like to look at the industry in kind of like 2 phases. We have the pants on fire, hair on fire issue of we don't have the labor force to do the work. And I don't mean locally, I mean nationally.
Yeah, it's a real and ongoing challenge.
100%. And that is where all of the energy is, all of the concern is at national level and at local levels. When you have that, Meta data center come into Rosemont, like that's the concern, and that's the number one instantaneous issue. We don't have the people to do the amount of work that it appears as though the data centers are going to drive for many years to come. That's issue 1. Second issue is that we are seeing technological changes at a pace that we have not seen for a long time. And I keep referencing Josh Bone. Watch that episode.
Yeah. If that isn't a sign.
Watch that episode, because you will learn about a whole bunch of the technology that he's talking about. He's way smarter about it than I am. That is going to change, whether that's fault managed power, power over Ethernet. All of this is going to fundamentally change the way that we do business. And so we have problem 1, the workforce, solving the problem of, now in the next 5 years, maybe longer, hopefully longer, if the data center boom continues. And
let's be honest, if not data centers, it's going to be power generation, power distribution. It's going to be some sort of industrial. There's always going to be something. There's going to be a next hot thing.
Yep. There should be, but I will say that data centers are unique. like just the scope and size of what goes into them, and then the knock-on effects that we're seeing within, the news media about them. Like, I think that, we've always had big projects. We've had US Bank Stadium and things like that. Data centers are a different beast. And so, but I think you're right. We're building out a workforce to meet the needs of today. What does that workforce look like 10 years from now?
Yeah.
How much of that work, every single one of these data centers starts off with inside work, and then every single one of these data centers in the next iteration of them has more limited, we call it limited energy in Minnesota, VDV nationally, low voltage. There's all
10
sorts
different
of
names.
10 different names. I'm just going to call it limited energy because that's what we call it here. But that growth, what happens when that limited energy portion of the portfolio starts offsetting what is inside, right? What is inside construction? That's what we call it in, the union parlance. And so I think that there's a whole bunch of questions about whether we're building the workforce today that's going to meet the needs of 10 years from now. I mean,
and I'm asking you totally unfairly to kind of solve it for us. Like, yeah, we have those questions, and what are maybe some potential solutions or potential future states that might happen with that? And then, kind of tie it back to what you guys are doing as NECA. How can you help support that whatever that evolution becomes? But if you can pin that down, write down the future for us.
Send it in.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and place some bets.
Yeah.
well, we're going to start with what NECA is doing, because I think we're doing more here than almost anywhere else in the country. We have a statewide limited energy agreement. We have a standalone statewide limited energy JATC apprenticeship program.
And why does that matter?
Because so anyone who has a journey worker electrician license can do limited energy and traditional inside work. But generally speaking, the folks that are the folks that have that license are doing bending pipe and doing more what you would call traditional electrician type work. The limited energy group is looking more at cable tray, new technology. They have new vault server technology in the JATC, so they're teaching people how to use fault managed power. They have a history, and we have a history in Minnesota of having a strong limited energy marketplace.
Yeah.
And what is NECA doing? So, NECA works with our contractors and the state of Minnesota. Minnesota, was the first to adopt the 2025 code. So that was the first state in the country to do that, which was the first, and that code was the first time that fault managed power had its own section within the code. So that means, any state that hasn't adopted that, hasn't really grappled with fault managed power in and of itself.
And that is a differentiator. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. And the State Board of Electricity has dealt with that. They if you're going to do limited energy work, it has to be licensed. It has to be permitted. These are things that we enjoy in Minnesota that other states, I would say, haven't caught up to, or they just have not every state's the same. Minnesota has more of a licensing culture. Other states have different ways of regulating it. So what I would say is that we've taken the Minnesota way and we're extending it to new technologies.
Yeah.
And we're leading the way. We have people from all over the country that want to come to our limited energy JATC. We have other parts of the country that would love to have a standalone limited energy JATC. We have a statewide limited energy agreement. That's one of the more progressive ones in the country. And so I think if you want to be a limited energy contractor, there's no better place to be it than in Minnesota. And that's because of the good work of NECA and our union partners. I'm going to give them credit because they've done a lot of this work with us, and we can't imagine a new industry alone. And so that is the challenge that will continue and persist. Obviously, we need to get people for the projects we have today, and we need to make sure that we're setting ourselves up so people have jobs tomorrow and the workforce meets the contractor's needs, because that's what we're here to do.
And I think if I was going to summarize that, it would be the best time to be a really good limited energy team was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. Get after it, grow that, and maybe drive some of the future as part of that team. Absolutely.
I think that limited energy will be the wave of the future. I tell the story of NECA. This is the 125th anniversary of NECA. So 1901, a whole bunch of contractors, mostly dudes, average age was 34, who wanted to create a national organization to standardize and create something new out of this newfangled technology of electricity, and to make it try to make it a building trade.
Yeah.
And at that point, I mean, you could have different homes had different voltages and all sorts of things that I don't.
There was no standard.
There was no standard.
Yeah.
There was no standard. And those young folks came together and said, we're going to spend time together trying to standardize a market across the country. And lo and behold, that's what they did. They literally elbowed their way into the code people's office and said, we're going to be part of helping develop the code. The standard outlet, the two-prong outlet, that was NECA electrical contractors helped with the standardization of that, which became the three-prong. So basically what happened between 1901 and the first 25 years of NECA was just standardization. So you could make it an industry. There was no industry.
Yeah.
Everybody says that, electricians were part of the building trades. No. We were technology contractors for about 25 years. Then we became part of the building trades. And everything's standardized. And so for the first 25 years, it was building an industry, taking new technology, trying to figure out how do you become that next contractor? How do you provide that service? 100 years, standardization, growth in our relationships with the union, and we became what everyone now thinks is a building trade. My argument is that we need to go back now. Because for the next 25 years, we're going to be back in the technology business. And if we're not back in the technology business, we're going to get left behind, because the technology is not going to wait.
No, sure won't.
No.
It is not waiting.
No, and it's moving already.
And as an industry, maybe it's overstating the obvious, but there's no one better prepared to step into that and shape it than, we as electrical contractors, frankly, all over the country.
Yep.
Yeah.
So as we kind of get close to wrapping up here, I want to, and hopefully a theme as we go into season 2 here, it is really learning more about the guests we have on and their leadership style. And the question that everybody's going to get asked is, how do you like to connect people with opportunity? So you guys all know, some viewing may know, this is probably weird as they're watching it. I would say pleasure, but doesn't do it justice. I had the privilege of working for Luke at NECA for several years. And so I have my personal story.
Did he make you sign like a legal document so you had to say it that way?
So I have my personal story of it. But obviously that approach is different now with a bigger chapter. It's different now with an increased role at national. And for somebody who is innovatively thinking like you are, how do you approach that from your NECA leadership role as to how can I make sure that all of these contractors that I serve have the opportunity to grow, and I connect them with that going forward, whether that's your personal opinion or what NECA tells you to say? No.
I'll kind of lean into my personal views on this, is that we as people in the industry have an obligation to tell people about this industry and to tout it and to make sure that people understand what it is and what opportunities are there. I think this generation of people are more likely to look at the trades than most previous ones. But I think it's really incumbent upon us, anyone in this industry, to be able to tell the story of what it is to be an electrical contractor, to what it is to be a union electrician, and what that entails and what opportunities that brings to people's lives. Because for many, many years, for the vast majority of our history, you became an electrician because your dad was an electrician, or your uncle was an electrician, or your neighbor was an electrician.
Yeah.
And they saw you maybe out there in the world, smart person, maybe doesn't like to sit behind a desk, maybe not quite the college type.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, there's another way. There's another way. And we need to do that better as a collective of people. We, at NECA, I serve on the boards of Building Strong Communities and Construction Careers Foundation, which reach out to, and we all have a good relationship with Lake Street Works, and we're reaching out to communities that might not have heard about the electrical industry and trying to tell that story. And so I'm really passionate about that. One of the things that annoys me is when I go online, I see, college graduate, philosophy degree, like can't get a job. It works as a barista, and then electrician, making, $100 and some $1,000s a year. I'm like, no, we shouldn't be hating on any particular pathway. We should be finding the pathway that best suits the people that they're there. Because the goal isn't to say college sucks or trade schools are for dummies. Like, no, that's not what we're here to do. We're here to say people have skills and they are really good at certain things, and we should find the people that best fit the role, whether that's working as a contractor in the office or out in the field. And so let's not hate on any particular pathway. Let's be curious. Learn what people like and what they're passionate about, and then find the pathway that makes sense. Because the hair on fire problem right now is lack of workers. And if we want to do a better job, it's incumbent upon us to do a better job telling our story.
Right on. Holy crap, that was good. I don't know if you practiced that or not. But
I told you there's a NECA script.
But in all seriousness, I deeply appreciate you sharing it that way, and I've never quite thought about it like that. Folks who've listened to this podcast and who know me know I've evangelized for decades about we need to get people in the trades, not as a third choice or a fourth choice, but as a first choice. We want really good problem solvers who are good at math, who are good at communicating, who aren't afraid to stand up and be a leader. We need all those folks. But I really love how you're trying to find the right path for the right person and, encourage all of those options to be on the table. I like that. We got enough opportunities. We got enough people. Let's match them up. Cool. Andrew, anything else? All right.
That's all I got.
Luke, any last thoughts for the massive audience that no doubt will listen and view this?
It's a season 2. It's groundbreaking.
I mean, as the inaugural season 2 guest, I want to thank you all, and I'm sure, I hope the guests get better as they move along through the process.
Ours high, people.
Yeah.
But no, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And we're going to be posting this on, the channels that we do on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Music. But I know that we're also working with NECA so that we can share some of this stuff out through LinkedIn and publicize it that way a little bit. Appreciate you being on here, and thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Luke.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I loved what you said. I really genuinely mean that. This is not. I'm just a genuine guy all the time. Like, I'm not going to bullshit you about anything. Love that response.